Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Daily Gwei Refuel, where I recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano, and today's the 4th of November 2021. Alright everyone, let's get into it. So, I put out this tweet today, basically where I said, if your goal in this industry is to profit at all costs, then we're probably not going to be friends. If your goal is to change the world using revolutionary decentralized technology, then I count you as part of my squad. Money is nice, but it will not buy you a purpose. Now, for those of you who've listened to my Layer Zero podcast that I did with David Hoffman at Bankless, you'll know kind of like my general thoughts on having a purpose and kind of like doing things and kind of like participating in the ecosystem and in life in general for things more than money. And you know, in crypto, it can be hard because I kind of like get it. There's a lot of people out there who come into crypto, they're relatively new and they're like, okay, well, I have a starting bankroll of maybe a few $1,000s. I want to get rich off this because I've heard all these stories of all these people kind of like getting rich off crypto, and I want that to be me. Look, I thought that way too once upon a time. Back in when I first got into crypto in 2013, when I got into Bitcoin, I had heard all these stories as well of people kind of buying Bitcoin at $1, and it was like, when I got in, I think it was like $60, $70 or something like that, and that was a huge gain, right? Still, at 60 or 70x. And I heard all these stories, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna buy it, and I'm gonna be rich. And I was so naive, right? I was so young and naive. It was so dumb. And then I ended up just selling like near the bottom of in kind of like 2014 of my Bitcoin. Probably not too near the bottom. I think I sold it around $400, and it ended up bottoming somewhere in the hundreds. But still, I didn't sell it at like $1,000 or whatever what it went to. And I didn't have much to begin with either. Now, and then I kind of like I came back in early 2017 into Ethereum, bought my kind of like first bit of ETH, and then kept buying for a little bit then. But I didn't really have much back then, so I tried to use that ETH within ICOs to flip and everything like that, and to earn more ETH. It worked until it didn't, right? It worked until kind of like the bull market ran its course, and the ICOs just got absolutely destroyed and slaughtered, and I ended up losing some ETH on them. So fast forward to today, and there's like a lot more opportunities to make money now, right? You have yield farming, you have like all these token incentives happening on all the different chains, you have all these tokens that you can buy that, I mean, it seems like everything's going up these days, right? Against USD at least, and it seems like everyone's making, lots of money around you. Now, I can pretty much guarantee that most people aren't making lots of money around you. Most people will actually end up trading away a lot of their gains because they'll try and chase that one pump that they rode, and they'll just kind of like trade away what they've made. They'll probably end up underperforming ETH and kind of like BTC over the long run. There's a long list of things that kind of happen there. But as I said, I totally understand that. And I totally understand a lot of you guys kind of like tuning in definitely fall into this camp of people that, are newer to the ecosystem, and you're making your first kind of investments, and you're hoping that this can lead to, obviously, making some money over time, which is totally fine. I have no issue with that at all. What I take issue with is people who are what are called quote-unquote profit maximalists, where the only reason that they're in this ecosystem is to make money. They care about nothing else. They just care about extracting as much money as they can from the ecosystem, and then when they get what they want, pretty much like when they've got enough, they'll probably like exit, right? And just like take their money out and go do whatever they want with it. Look, if you want to be that type of person, then feel free to do that. Like, no one's going to stop you from doing that. But I personally don't want to associate with people like that because it's just not what I vibe with. I've never been like that. Like, even in 2013, when I first got into Bitcoin, I wasn't a profit maximalist. Yes, I wanted to make money, of course, but I was still very, very interested in the technology. The funny thing is I actually stopped being interested, half because the price came down, but half because the tech was so limited and there wasn't anything like Ethereum back then. So like I kind of lost interest. But there wasn't really much going on in kind of like the market during 2018, 2019, and even like early 2020. And I think I got more involved then than I ever had been with crypto. So for me, at the end of the day, like I am literally in it for the tech. I think at this point, like if you've been watching the refuel for a while, reading my newsletters, it's all free, right? Like I'm not here to suck the value out of this ecosystem and go buy Lambos. Like the funny thing is my lifestyle hasn't even really changed that much since since kind of like the bull market began, and obviously, my investments paid off. The biggest lifestyle change for me was that I quit my job at Set. Well, I didn't quit Set entirely. I just like stopped being their product marketing manager, and I moved into an advisory role, and so I could do more of this stuff. So I could do the Daily Gwei stuff and everything else that I try to do within the ecosystem. But other than that, I haven't done anything else. Like I haven't gone bought a fancy car or anything like that. Yeah, I buy my figurines, which you guys know about. You may see it on Twitter, but I was doing that before, while working at Set as well. So yeah, from that perspective, for me, money was just always a means to an end to get to what I want to do, which is change the world using this revolutionary decentralized technology. I want to educate about this. I want to spread the word. I want to get more people involved with it. I want to get more people involved with it for the tech rather than the money. But in saying that, I am talking from a privileged position here, where I'm kind of like the point where I've made the money I wanted to make, and then I can just kind of like coast along. Whereas a lot of you guys who are newer to the ecosystem are definitely trying to find alpha and trying to kind of invest and make money elsewhere. And as I said, no issues with that at all. And I count obviously all of you listening and watching every day as part of my squad, because you wouldn't be listening and watching my videos if all you cared about was money. Because I don't shill you tokens, right? I don't go through price charts all the time. I'm not telling you when to buy and when to sell. There's plenty of YouTubers who do that, but you watch the Daily Gwei because you want to get the kind of like most up-to-date information on the Ethereum and wider crypto ecosystems without all that fluff and shilling. So from that perspective, I already know all of you are in it for the tech. And it's okay to be in it for the tech and the money. I mean, I am too. Like, I'm not going to say I'm not. Like, I still make investments. I still buy things, whether that be angel investing or buying things on public markets. And obviously, I'm expecting a return. I'm not just doing it as an altruistic endeavor. But what I mean by profit maximalist and how they differ from that is that they literally don't care about the tech. They'll use whatever is necessary to get money. They may even go as far as kind of like creating their own tokens and their own things to scam people out of money, which pretty much goes much further. A lot of them really are just like, I mean, it's a big part, like traders, right? A lot of the people who are just like mercenary farmers and kind of like getting as much money as possible and then not caring about anything except that. For me, that's a hollow existence, really, at the end of the day. Like, I couldn't do that, even if I wanted to. Even if I tried my hardest to force myself to do it, I couldn't. I'd probably just end up getting depressed about it. It is such a hollow existence because, as I said in the tweet, money is nice, but it will not buy you a purpose. Money is a means to an end. It's not going to, making all this money, say you make like millions of dollars, it's not going to automatically lead you to, or allow you, or basically tell you, okay, well, now you've made millions of dollars, here's your purpose in life, go do that and you'll be truly happy. No, money is an inanimate object. It lets you have more free time to maybe pursue your interest and pursue kind of like finding your purpose. So as I said, it's a means to an end, but it is not going to buy you that purpose. It is not going to tell you what it is. It is not going to kind of like make it any easier to figure it out, other than kind of like freeing up some of your time. So, and then, if you do something what's called a lifestyle creep, where, you may like spend lots of money on different things because you've got a lot of money. So you start like, creeping up your lifestyle and start buying, Lambos and like fancy houses and fancy things and whatever, trying to kind of like chase that happiness or trying to like, get kind of like chase, a purpose. I don't know. I just feel like it's not going to work. But I'm not here to kind of tell people what they should and shouldn't do. I'm just giving my perspective. And I think this is critically important. You may be wondering why I'm even talking about this on the Refuel. But at the end of the day, like, Ethereum is a social movement as much as it is a technology. The Ethereum culture and the Ethereum ethos and mission is all about the social constructs and all about the social layer. The technical stuff kind of like follows on from that, but first and foremost, Ethereum is a social construct, and we all kind of like are aligned on properties of decentralization, openness, permissionlessness, doing things the right way based on hard science rather than doing things by taking shortcuts. And as I said, that all stems from the social layer, which stems from the fact that a lot of people in the Ethereum ecosystem I would say that the hardcore Ethereum community members, pretty much none of them would be profit maximalists. They are literally kind of like in it for the tech. They want to help the tech along. They want to do different things, whether that be building, educating, investing. And investing doesn't have to be just like a pure profit-driven endeavor. there are a lot of funds that will obviously invest their money, but they'll also invest their time, their knowledge, and they'll help these teams out in those regards rather than money. And they'll do it because they enjoy doing it. They want to do it. They want to see these things get built and succeed. So it's not just about profit for them at the end of the day as well. So yeah. Anyway, kind of like a little bit of I wouldn't call it a rant. Maybe just like a kind of like open kind of discussion about how I feel about these things. I'm curious to obviously get you guys' thoughts on this as well. So if you want to comment on YouTube or go into the Discord channel and kind of like probably talk about this some more, I'm always happy to do that. I think that it is critically important that the social layer gets talked about a lot more than it has been, because people think this stuff's just like purely technical, when in reality the social aspect to it is probably more important than the technical stuff, and it all flows from the social layer anyway at the end of the day. So yeah, anyway, I'm going to move on to the rest of the updates. So another ENS token update. So over the last 24 hours, someone on Twitter spotted that there was a cluster of accounts that appeared to be designed to farm the ENS token airdrop. And then Nick says here, Nick Johnson, the lead developer of ENS, said here that they've taken a closer look at the accounts and they considered several options. And then he outlines what they've described and their reasoning here. So you can go read this thread for a full breakdown of this. But essentially, they've gone with option 4 here, which was basically blacklisting the accounts that they've identified as trying to game the airdrop. So I thought that was the best outcome for sure. I think there was 784 accounts associated with this. Definitely the best outcome. Definitely a really good move by them. And, you know, it's funny because there's a few reasons how this could have happened. One is the obvious reason. Someone had insider knowledge of the airdrop. They decided to kind of like essentially create all these different accounts, get these ENS names in order to maximize how much of the airdrop they could get. The second thing, which is actually, you know, pretty likely, probably not, maybe not as likely, because I think being an insider is probably more likely than this, but secondly, could be someone speculating that ENS was going to have a token and basically saying, well, you know, if they do have a token, I'm going to just like spend some money to spin up all these accounts and try and game the airdrop. That could definitely have happened. And so I think someone mentioned that ENS had a job advertisement for a governance lead a few weeks ago. So, you know, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that out either, where you see governance lead, they're like, okay, well, ENS doesn't have a token, it doesn't have a DAO, it doesn't have a governance process right now, so what does that mean? Well, I mean, it means that there was a token and a governance kind of like in a DAO thing coming, which is exactly what happened. So I think there are merits to both kind of like stipulations there, or kind of speculations there, but if I had to guess, I'd probably say it was an insider, because the thing is that when you launch a token, there are surprisingly a lot of people that need to know about it for various different reasons. And any one of those people could go tell someone else, right? And then they could go tell someone else, and it quickly becomes a thing where there's hundreds of people that potentially know about this, and any one of them can easily try and game the system pretty much anonymously. You could send funds to an Ethereum address and then wash them through Tornado Cash, and then basically you're free to do whatever you want. The chances of you kind of like getting traced back to destination address is extremely low, if not pretty much like impossible for it to be traced back there. So from that perspective, I would say, you know, maybe more likely that it was an insider, but it's not too far-fetched to say that it was just someone also trying to, I guess, game the airdrop by guessing or assuming that there was going to be an airdrop. So yeah, anyway, go read this thread for a full breakdown of the reasoning. I thought the way that it resolved it was pretty cool, pretty admirable as well. So Ameen Soleimani, the CEO of SpankChain here, had a really great tweet. Well, I guess like one part of his tweet that I really resonated with. But essentially he was quote tweeting Rahul here, who recently joined kind of like Reddit's crypto team to build Reddit's kind of like crypto integration on Arbitrum, which I'm going to talk about in a sec anyway. But essentially Ameen quote tweeted it and said, "The end users of Ethereum are no longer individual humans. It's roll-up dev teams building ecosystems. Let 1,000 roll-ups bloom." And then he goes on to say, and this is my favorite part of what he said, "Ethereum as a civilizational trust anchor." Now, this is what I wrote today's Daily Gwei newsletter about. You can go check that out for some more context around this. But I mean, this is exactly what I've been preaching for a long time now about how Ethereum Layer 1 is not for individual humans or end users anymore. It is for bots, whales, and Layer 2 kind of like proofs and call data, which is what rollups are, of course. But then Ameen just put this in some, you know, a really, really great quote where he says, "Ethereum as a civilizational trust anchor." That like got my brain spinning today, and really what it kind of like says to me is that Ethereum is a global network, right? It spans, every country in the world. It spans every civilization in the world. It is truly global in nature. And because Ethereum is truly global in nature, it can globally scale trust, settlement assurances, and security and decentralization, which is exactly what Ethereum's layer 1 is doing right now and is being designed to do even better in the future, obviously with the merge coming up and switching to proof of stake. And also, we're still going to be scaling at this layer through sharding and statelessness. But at the core of what Ethereum layer 1 wants to be is a trust anchor for things like rollups, because what ends up happening is that rollups can have very, very, very strong guarantees, pretty much like the strongest guarantees on the planet, that if they post their proofs of their transactions and their data of their from their rollup to Ethereum layer 1, they have extremely strong guarantees that it is going to be there when they need it, and it's going to be secure. Because in a proof of stake world, Ethereum will have finality, which makes this even more secure and makes the settlement assurances even stronger. And the notion of finality is basically that every 12 minutes, the Ethereum network under a proof of stake will finalize. And that means that 2/3 of the ETH at stake, which would currently be around 5 or 6 million ETH, tens of billions of dollars, attest to the what has already been validated in the past on the chain, and basically say, you can't reorg past this point, or you can't go back past this point. Or what ends up happening is that 2/3 of ETH that has kind of attested to this is at stake of being slashed. So you have tens of billions of dollars, potentially hundreds of billions of dollars in the future of capital at stake if someone was to go back and reorg the chain, more than 12 minutes, or someone wants to go back and try and kind of like change something about it, or kind of like do surgical state transitions and things like that. So essentially, what you have is the only system out there that is extremely secure, extremely resistant to basically reorgs and stuff like that, and gives you incredibly strong settlement guarantees because of that as well. So that's what I took from Ameen saying Ethereum as a civilizational trust anchor, because these rollups are basically trusting Ethereum layer 1 to both be to both have the availability, right, the data availability, have the kind of like proofs be cemented on there and come to consensus on and secured on there. And they're also trusting them with their bridge contracts too, right? Getting in and out of these kind of rollups. And this is why, or one of the reasons why, rollups have chosen Ethereum as their trust anchor. Because of this, like, think about all the other chains. They have way less security than Ethereum. Many of them are not decentralized. Many of them have very, very centralized points of failure. Many of them don't have the notion of finality like Ethereum does. Many of them are DPoS networks, which are inherently turning to cartels over time, and many of them are taking extreme trade-offs to achieve scale at layer 1, whereas Ethereum is doing scaling at layer 1 over the long term in the proper way, and also ensuring that layer 1 can stay as decentralized and secure as possible, so that we can still remain this civilizational trust anchor. So anyway, I've got more information about this in today's Daily Gwei newsletter if you want to go check that out. But I figured I'd just quickly talk about it now because it really means a lot to me, and it's at the heart of what I think Ethereum is today and what it can be better at in the future as well. So here is Rahul, who I was talking about before, his thread on joining Reddit's crypto team. Now, you remember that Reddit is building their own instance of Arbitrum to scale their community point system. And in this thread, Rahul goes over what he's doing, what Reddit is doing in crypto. And it's 3 words: decentralize social media. And then he goes on with, details about it and how to kind of like make this all happen. This tweet that's being kind of like quote tweeted a lot is about how Reddit has 500 million monthly active users. And when Reddit pulls off this kind of like Arbitrum instance, they could potentially onboard 500 million Web 2 users into Web 3, and then there is no going back. So basically, potentially onboarding 500 million new crypto users, which is absolutely massive, right? Incredible amount of users to onboard. And Reddit, I think, I've gone through it before. They're very progressive in choosing a kind of like Ethereum-based scaling solution here. They definitely care deeply about, or seem to care deeply about, the Web3 movement and decentralization, and Ethereum's kind of like place in that as well. So definitely go read this thread for some further context here. But it's really, really great to see that that kind of like that Reddit is taking this approach rather than going to one of the kind of like more quote unquote scalable other chains that have sacrificed those core properties of decentralization and security in order to achieve that scale. They're taking the proper approach here. So big props to Reddit and respect to Reddit for doing this, of course. So I missed this, I think it was 2 days ago, but Metacartel launched the PadawanDAO, which is basically a DAO that is going to fund scholarships to young Padawans to attend their first crypto conferences, high school and college students, etc. Peter Pan here, one of the founders of Metacartel, will be personally pledging funding to this as well. So this is something that Rick Burden actually has been pioneering lately. Basically sponsoring people and sponsoring particularly young people who don't have much money, whether they're in high school or in college, to go to crypto conferences. Because for anyone who's been to a crypto conference, specifically an Ethereum conference, specifically an Ethereum hackathon, like ETH Denver, for example, you'll know just how much kind of like alpha is there. I'm not talking about investing alpha. I'm talking about knowledge. Like the smartest people in the ecosystem are like concentrated in one space for a few days. And there are kind of like builders everywhere. There are kind of like scientists everywhere, researchers everywhere, and it's just like it really is a kind of like center point for a few days where people can just like learn from each other and get to know each other. And it's not fair that younger people have to miss out on this just because they can't afford to go. So this is really cool. You can read this kind of like forum post for more details about this. But yeah, awesome to see this, and I hope to see some of these people at conferences in the future myself as well. Maybe they're listening to the Refuel right now. If you are, that's awesome. But yeah, I hope to see a lot of these people kind of attend these conferences going forward. So the metaverse has obviously been a big topic of discussion lately. And the funny thing is that a lot of people may not be aware of this, but Polygon's POS chain or the Polygon ecosystem is very heavy into the metaverse. Things that have been kind of like in the spotlight lately, like the Sandbox and Decentraland and Decentral Games, Aavegotchi, all that sort of stuff. Yield Guild Games, they live on Polygon. They are part of the Polygon POS chain ecosystem, and you know what? I actually think that that's one of the best places for them. I know there's other kind of like ecosystems like Immutable X building stuff and building NFT and gaming stuff, and they're doing really well as well. But I think that Polygon has a really, really great kind of way of doing this, because as you guys know, the POS chain isn't a true layer 2. It's not a roll-up. It's a kind of like a commit chain on to Ethereum, and it has less security because of that and less decentralization because of that. But the thing is, a lot of these kind of like metaverse things, especially the gaming side of it, they don't need the maximum decentralization and security of Ethereum layer 1, especially not for kind of like a lot of the maybe lower value assets that they have. What they do need is a way to do cheap transactions, which is what the Polygon POS chain gives them. So yeah, this is really cool. I just wanted to point this out, that a lot of this kind of stuff lives on Polygon. It's a great ecosystem. I mean, obviously I'm an advisor to Polygon, so I'm just kind of like talking about this because I pay attention to this ecosystem. But I mean, I put out a tweet today saying that I figured crypto gaming is going to be much bigger than people realize. It's still very early days for it, of course. It's still something that is definitely going to require a lot of tinkering with to get right, but there are a lot of kind of like really cool games out there and a lot of ones coming online soon that are going to be big. And you know, the fact that they're on Polygon as well is really, really cool, because Polygon basically has a really great little metaverse ecosystem developing here. So if you want to check any of them out, you can. I'll link this in the YouTube description. You can just Google each of these, see what they're all about, and go play around with them. So another bridging protocol that I came across today, I don't think it's new. I think it's been out for a little while, but I hadn't heard of it before. It's called deBridge, or deBridge. And the reason why I heard about it today was because they've deployed their updated version to the testnet. So I think it's on Kovan testnet. But this is just another bridge for kind of like L2s and for sidechains and all that sort of stuff. There's so many of these things, right? Like, it's insane how many bridges there are, but it makes sense because everyone wants to go from like everywhere to everywhere. And, you know, this is only on testnet right now. This isn't on mainnet just yet. But with kind of like this new testnet deployment, they've got like an improved UI, gas optimizations, kind of like they're doing kind of like things with IPFS as well. So, I mean, you can read this blog post for full details here and try it out on testnet as well. But I wanted to point this out because I know you guys have been listening to me talk about bridges for a long time, and I want to kind of like try and stay on top of all the bridges and kind of like know which ones are out there, know which ones are specifically doing things kind of like differently as well. which ones are cheap, which ones are the most trustless. As I said, like each of these bridges have a lot of kind of like different designs to them. You know, I spotlighted a cross protocol the other day, which is already a new design where they do short-term loans. You have cross-chain dexes. You have like arbitrary message relayers. You have multi-sig bridges. You know, there's a world of different bridges out there. And they all have their own different kind of like trust assumptions and trade-offs. And I think, you know, deBridge is just another one that's kind of like come across my radar and seems to be making waves here as well. So definitely go check out this blog post for more details about that. So Immutable has announced that they've partnered with another big kind of like, I guess, traditional gaming firm called Playco. So 500 million players apparently are in the Playco ecosystem, and now they'll get access to gas-free and carbon-neutral NFTs on their favorite games across Facebook, TikTok, Snapchat, and more, all powered by Immutable X, of course, which is built on StarkWare, secured by Ethereum. Immutable is just making I mean, I know I've probably said this before on the refuel, but they're making so many big waves here with basically bringing the non-crypto companies into crypto, because I think that is the biggest opportunity especially for these layer twos, where they can essentially bootstrap I guess like new users or get new users into their ecosystems without having to kind of like tap into the existing users, because the existing user pool is very small. Like I actually put out another tweet today where I basically said everyone's fighting over the few million on-chain active users that we have, and if I'm being honest, I don't even think it's a few million on-chain active users. And I'm talking about like people who are active, you know, at least weekly. It doesn't have to be daily, but like you're active at least weekly. There's probably less than 1 million of those kinds of people at this stage. Maybe it's probably grown since then. Maybe it is a few million, but we have billions left to onboard. So why are we fighting over like scraps? Essentially, we should be working to grow the pie like so much bigger. And I think that's exactly what happens when Immutable does this, and when other kind of like obviously infrastructure projects kind of do this, where they basically bring in these massive user bases, sort of like what Reddit is doing, right? They're bringing in their massive user base into the Ethereum ecosystem via Arbitrum. Immutable is bringing in the massive user bases of things like TikTok and Playco, and you know, there's other ones out there as well. I can't think of it right now. There was other ones they're bringing in, and they're doing it while also appealing to the existing Ethereum user base as well that can use this stuff. But they realize that the existing Ethereum user base is tiny compared to the amount of users they can bring into it. So this is why these sorts of stuff get me excited, because it just means more and more people are going to be using Ethereum, and they're also going to be using Ethereum without realizing it. Like, how many people are going to use Immutable X without and kind of like associate Immutable X with NFTs, but not realize that it's secured by Ethereum in the background? That is kind of like what Ethereum is being built to be, in the background, sitting in the background, being that, you know, trust anchor that I talked about before, and kind of like the layer twos at the user level can offer that better experience, offer their own ecosystems, cheaper transactions, faster transactions, all that good stuff. And these users would never have probably used Ethereum Layer 1 anyway. So, as I've said before, Immutable is unlocking more value, unlocking basically new transactions and new kind of like economic activity that just simply wouldn't have happened at Layer 1 Ethereum. So, awesome to see them partnering with Playco. I'm sure they've even got more partnerships coming. They seem to be knocking these out every other day at this point, but awesome to see that. And disclosure, I'm an investor in Immutable X, very proud investor, because they're an Aussie-based team. I love supporting Aussie-based teams. But yeah, just wanted to add a disclosure there. All right, final thing to talk about here is StarkWare has announced their strategic partnership with Argent. So I think I spoke about this on the refuel, but there was kind of like a bit of hints about the fact that Argent was working with StarkNet already. But I think this is kind of like formalizing a strategic partnership between StarkWare and Argent to bring StarkNet to the Argent mobile wallet. So this is basically Argent confirming that they're working with both ZK Sync and StarkNet. And I'm sure they're going to be confirming a partnership with Arbitrum and probably Optimism as well in the future too. So, you know, Argent wants to be connected to every layer 2, and why wouldn't they? They are trying to be the most kind of like user-friendly, normie-friendly Ethereum wallet out there. And to do that, they can't do it at layer 1 for all the reasons I've outlined previously, right? They have to do it at layer 2, and they are. And I think They've been teasing it for quite a while now. I'm sure it's coming very soon. I'm hoping it is because I really want to play around with it. But all this sorts of stuff is just like making moves. Everything's happening in parallel, and I'm super excited to see more stuff like this happen here. But yeah, I think on that note, that's going to be it for today. So thank you everyone for listening and watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Give that video a thumbs up, subscribe to the newsletter, join the Discord channel, and I'll catch you all tomorrow. Thanks everyone.